Welcome to the Beyond the Mic Show, a show where we interview top coaches, consultants, and experts about topics that will help you run your coaching business more profitably and serve your clients more effectively. I'm your host, Matt Walrath, and today's guest is Marcy Welk of Experience RX. I thought I was a client experience nerd, and then I met Marcy Welk. Marcy launched a passion project, Experience RX, to help small and medium fitness business owners effectively survey their customers to gain a better picture about how their customers perceive their company and how to take action on this knowledge. Prior to Experience RX, Marcy worked for 30 plus years at a premier market research firm as a VP of client services. She has a broad knowledge of quantitative and qualitative methods and research best practices, and this is building on a solid education of 2 master's degrees, one in social research and an MBA. In this interview, we cover the difference between customer service and client experience, how to survey your clients to gain actionable insights, what questions to ask your clients in those surveys, when to survey your clients for the best insights, and how often to survey your clients. This interview is a must watch if you run any service-based business, from coaching to running a fitness facility. As service providers, we are usually too close to the business to have an objective view about our clients' experiences. And this show will give you clarity about how to approach understanding why clients leave, why clients stick around, and how to make more of your clients stick around longer. So without further ado, let's get into the show. So Marcy, welcome to the Beyond the Mic Show. I'm so excited that we get to dive in and have a conversation about CX.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So we actually initially connected because I kept seeing you posting these awesome insights about customer and client experience on some networking groups that we're a part of. And eventually I was just like, I need to get a call with this person because I think that I'm a nerd when it comes to CX, but you're posting all these data-driven insights, and I'm like, a real nerd on CX. I need to have a conversation. So for the people who are watching, I would love just to hear from you. What is your definition of CX or client experience? And for people who don't know, how does it differ from customer service?
Sure. So customer service tends to be fairly transactional. It tends to be a response to a specific situation. So if I need to track a delivery, or I'm unhappy with a situation, I'll reach out to a company and ask for a service interaction, a response to a specific, in a specific concept text. So that's what I mean by transactional. Customer experience is a little bit different. It's a whole lot bigger than that. It's about the perceptions that customers have about their interactions with your business, right? And interactions is plural because there are many different types of interactions that people have, whether it is maybe some of the more transactional payment, invoicing, scheduling types of things, to more personal and engaging points of contact, such as in the fitness business, going to a class, joining a challenge, in other contexts, other things that just extend beyond this minute at this time. So CX is the summary. It's the grand total, the sum of all of those interactions that customers have over multiple points and multiple points in time with your business.
Yeah. So then, so to me, what I'm getting from that is like the customer service, it's almost like, okay, you just finished purchasing something and you get a survey that's like, how was your experience? Rate, let's say that you're the person who I bought it from, rate Marcy on her, like what she did at the point of sale. Like, was it a good experience, or do you recommend people? Whereas client experience is, okay, that's part of client experience. That's one of the experiences that a client or customer has with the business. But then there was also me at the rack checking out clothes, and there was me walking in and seeing the sign, and there's all these different experiences that I have specifically with your business that make up the sum of client experience.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, and they aggregate, they repeat over time, they build, right? And they help, they build into perceptions, right? Because the way I perceive each of the, the multitude of interactions I have with your business is sort of filtered by what did I expect walking in, right? Yeah. When you walk into the Apple store, you expect a different experience than you do when you walk into, say, Walmart, right? Those are they're by design. They are delivering different things, but you as a customer walk in with a different set of expectations. So those expectations really drive your perception of the experience. And perceptions, we could just nerd out like for as long as you'll let me go. But perceptions aren't a single thing, right? People have different perceptual lenses. And maybe in the simplest form, one lens is something we could call success, right? Yeah. Pumpkin put this framework up, and success is, if you're at the Apple store, or Walmart actually, did I find what I needed? Did I get in and out of there in time? And did I have polite and effective interactions with staff if and when I needed them, right? So those sorts of things drive a perceptual lens around the success of an interaction. But it doesn't really end there. There are a couple of other lenses that are super important to understand. And those are, one is called, broadly speaking, effort. How easy or difficult was it for me to accomplish what I expected to accomplish, right, as I came in to have this experience? So there are various metrics that measure customer effort, and one of the factors in experience design then becomes how do I think through each and every step in an interaction to minimize the effort or to align the effort that customers have with what they expect to have. So success and effort are two lenses, and the third, and I think possibly most important lens is emotional, right? How do I feel about this interaction that I had with you, or this situation? And again, this is not just one-off transactions. This is across every way that I engage with your brand. How does it leave me? How do I feel? How does it leave me as I walk out the door, leave the class, end the challenge, whatever it might be about the way this worked? So understanding those three perceptual lenses really helps you kind of get in front of the way people or customers experience your brand, and those lenses are what form their attitudes about you, right? And attitudes drive behaviors. Behaviors are things like, am I coming back? Am I spending more, right? Am I recommending you? So when you get those little surveys that the minute you jump onto a website, before you've even really made your way through what it is you're there to accomplish, and somebody's asking you, would you recommend? That's a strange context, because again, it all builds as a process, and understanding customer experience requires really understanding that it is a bit of a discipline, and you do need to think about these different facets of experience, and it doesn't have to be hard, but to get in front of thinking about measuring what's happening, so you know what's how your customers are experiencing what's happening as they engage with you.
Yeah. And I think that's a really hard thing, especially as a business owner, and even more so as, let's say, an owner operator, to just have those perceptual lenses that your clients or your customers are viewing your business through, because you're so close to it. You're the one that set it up. And so you believe that it's an amazing experience because you created it. So for somebody who is an owner and an owner operator that's so close to their business, what are those questions they need to be asking, or how can they actually see what the perception of their business is that's driving the behaviors that their clients are engaging in?
That's such a great question. And, the thing of it is, one thing about going out and seeking customer feedback, it's not about telling you what you're doing wrong. It's about reinforcing what you're doing right and pointing to some opportunities to maybe, catch some blind spots and do even better. So I think in an owner-operator zone, when you have, I don't know, there's not an exact magic number, but let's say up to maybe 50 to 75 customers, the likelihood that your customers very personally, very well, and you have a natural feedback loop, just based on your normal interactions, is probably pretty high. I mean, if you're listening, if you're paying attention, you can probably stay in front of customer needs and they'll tell you what's working and what isn't. That's the nature of it at that scale. As you move up and you have 100 to 200 to then ever more customers, and or your locations begin to grow, so you have frontline staff managing different locations and then telling you what's going on. I mean, you of course have some data in your CRM and your POS and everything else that helps you see some of the economic factors of what's going on. But it becomes harder at that scale to know what's happening in terms of, hey, are you a success, effort, and emotion, right? Those perceptual lenses. So then you have a variety of tools that can really help you connect. One is to do, to not think in terms of, talking to each and every customer, but to get systematic about having regular conversations that are a little bit structured, right? To ask about the things that you've designed in and you value and that you're positioning your proposition around, to see how customers are reacting to those key elements, and you can do that conversationally. That's good, and it's really quick, easy, and insightful, but it's hard to aggregate. And it's hard to make comparisons and to know that you sort of have reliable information for multiple locations or whatever the situation may be as you scale up. At that point, surveys can really be your friend, and they don't, I know everybody, not everybody, but I'm sure we're all over surveyed, right? We all have survey fatigue. We don't need one more survey in our life, and I certainly recognize that. So thinking about issuing surveys that are fast, frictionless, designed to be super smart and tell you what you need with minimum effort on the part of your customers, and following some best practices around natural language use and just something a little, not something academic looking, which surveys sometimes tend to be. You can make it visually fun, connected to your brand, from you, right, as opposed to feeling really anonymous. And in those ways, really achieve higher response rates than might be average, and begin to dig into some questions that you can look across your customer base at and understand, do I have a few people who have a particular perspective who are really loud, and a majority who have a different perspective who are quiet, right? Mm-hmm. Be able to support smart business decision making, and to do that, you need to know that you have a reliable view of your customer's perspective around their experience and your goals with their experience.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point there with like the loud person with the minority perspective, because I think a lot of people who are watching this are probably either like a facility owner or an online coach, and you've probably got that person who's constantly in your ear about your business, but they are one of potentially many clients. And because you hear that so loud from them, all of a sudden you see that as truth. So yeah, I think it's so good to be able to put your feelers out there, because one of the things I saw on the Experience RX website that I thought was so interesting is I think you said something like 4% of unsatisfied customers don't speak out about it.
Yeah, it's totally true. It's totally true. Only 4% do of dissatisfaction.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The rest leave. They ghost you. They're out. And there's a ripple effect to that ghosting, right? Because if I leave unhappy, what am I going to do?
Bit of negative word of mouth.
I'm gonna go advocate. Yeah. So the idea of and that's just on the that's on the dissatisfied side. On the positive side, using feedback to design better customer experiences puts you in a place where you have happier customers, right? And unlike dissatisfied customers, right, who don't tell you they leave, they advocate, happy customers do just the opposite. They stay longer. So therefore your acquisition costs are covered and your profitability grows, right? The longer somebody stays, the less, the more attractive the financial picture is on them. But even more importantly, they spend more because they become more comfortable, and they're out there spreading the good word about you, right? They tell their friends, and that's the quality referral that everybody wants.
Yeah.
So really, that's the road to retention.
Yeah.
Building a stronger base of happier customers by understanding what it is that works for them, what may or may be perhaps not their favorite, and where the opportunities are to fill in a gap that you're not aware of.
Yeah. And what kind of questions are you asking to get at that? Like, are you just saying, what are you not loving? What are you loving? And what can I do better? Or like, what?
You gotta geek out. And when you ask questions, surveys are an art and a science, right?
Yeah.
I have a couple of master's degrees in survey research, as well as over 30 years in working for a huge consulting firm doing surveys for some of the bigger companies in America. So it is something that seems easy now that the technology is available to throw out. Hey, I'll just go ask you, what do you like? What don't you like? But those types of questions that are open and asking for a response are really hard to analyze, right?
Yeah.
First of all, out of 100 people who will answer your survey, maybe 20 will give you that kind of an answer, right? It takes time and effort. And then when you get the answer, you're sort of back to the same boat as you have with face-to-face feedback. I've got a few people saying one thing. Does it drive a decision for me? What we do instead is try to ask questions that are quantitative in nature, right? So that you use various types of rating scales, right? And they don't have to be boring 1 to 10s, right? We use fun visual interaction and labeling and tools within the survey to make responding to a scale less monotonous than perhaps that might sound.
Yeah.
Once you have those kinds of answers, then we ask key performance indicators, and we ask questions that are specifically designed to grab ratings of your business, right? It's not a one-size-fits-all, NPS out the door question, because you have specific objectives, and our questions need to reflect that so that how the experience that you've tried so hard to design is actually being responded to. So key performance indicators, questions about your specific service design, and then some more functional quality fundamentals, if you will. So if you're a gym, I don't really want to go out and talk about is your locker room or your bathroom clean. Don't pay me to do that. You figure it out.
Yeah.
There are some fundamentals around staff interactions that may or may not be as easy to observe and understand. So KPIs, some business service design specific, some quality fundamentals, and then some emotions, right? How do you feel when you leave here? How confident are you in your form, if for example, in a gym environment or in a specific type of workout environment? And it's really those categories of questions that then we can begin to analyze to see, hey, what's rising to the top? What's working best? Where are there gaps? And it's amazing how far the spread is on some of these things within specific experiences.
Yeah.
Link things to that, like what you know from your CRM about customer tenure. So are your newer customers evaluating you differently than customers who have been with you for a longer time?
Mm.
Is there a difference based on gender? Is there, maybe a connectivity between how much people are spending and what their perceptions of price to value are? So really short set of survey questions designed to be quantitative, designed to go from a high order of sort of business metrics you need to evaluate, to benchmark and track, personal design factors, quality fundamentals, and emotions. And then we just link that all up into a super simple summary, and it's amazing how deep the insights can go there.
Yeah, seeing some of the samples that you sent over to me were pretty impressive. And I think to go back really quickly, I'm curious, I think people would be interested to hear an example of a question for each of those different categories, from KPI to emotions with a business, so that we can put a tangible, okay, what does that look like? Like, what kind of questions should I be thinking about asking?
So KPIs are key performance indicators.
Yeah.
And those are questions that are designed to give you sort of a bellwether for how your business is doing. One that most people are probably familiar with because it's overexposed and often kind of overused, I would think, is the Net Promoter Score, right?
Yeah.
That's the likelihood to recommend. But it's about advocacy for your business. That's a good question, and we ask that question, but it's not sufficient as a KPI. So other types of KPIs include customer satisfaction, right? Likelihood to renew, which is key to retention. And what's, again, understanding the relationship between satisfaction and likelihood to renew. Trust can be a KPI question. This is a brand that I trust, and understanding across your customer distribution how that looks can be incredibly insightful. Loyalty is a KPI. Earned loyalty is a KPI. But those are just sort of high level questions that just tell you, at a business level, how high or low is the dial. We like to include at least 3 of those because you need some reliability across that, and they interact in interesting ways.
That makes sense. And I'm curious, for earned loyalty, for example, how would you phrase a question to ask that? Because I don't think you're going to go to a client and be like, have I earned your loyalty? Or is that how you would phrase it?
If I was, say I'm the Apple store and I'm sending a survey, Apple is a store that has earned your loyalty, and you set that on an agreement scale.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
You set it on an agree to disagree scale. Yeah. And you can do it with a slider or with a star. I'm morally opposed to smiley faces.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm teasing. But no, you ask it in a way, how much do you agree or disagree? Right? And then people can slide in and give you, a 1 to 10 or a 1 to 7 or whatever that might look like.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then how about for the other categories? What are some examples of how you would frame those questions as well? Is it similar where you have a statement and then potentially a slider, or are you asking open-ended questions at any point?
I typically ask one open-ended question, Matt, and I do it at the very end of the survey. So to go through some of the other types of questions, to get at service design issues, I worked with a CrossFit gym. I loved this one question. The owner was talking to me about some of the things they try to do that are distinctly different. And as an example, it was really important to him that people have a laugh or two in every class. Nice. Right? That it's not just hard-ass hardcore.
Yeah.
With that, we always have a laugh or two in class. I mean, it translates very easily. And several other key points that were really very personal to him and to what he feels he tries to create in his member community. So those types of questions come in that way. Quality fundamentals, again, we're linking to some coaching and training, trainer questions in a gym environment that might be that I'm equally comfortable across all of the trainers, right?
Yeah.
the quality is consistent across all the trainers. We can address music, right? Playlist connectivity, and other factors, right? Workout effectiveness. I mean, those things are. It's not. It isn't into the specifics of the workout. It's how are you. Are you leaving feeling you had a solid, strong workout that you were confident in, and the music supported, and the instructor, trainer, etc., gave you what the personal attention you needed, or you got the guidance you needed, etc. Those kind of all fall into that big quality fundamental. And again, being able to look across your distribution, across your customers, and understanding how people are rated is super helpful, because I think in the absence of that type of feedback, one thing people do is look at like reviews on Yelp, or the 4% of people who do complain. But those Yelp type environments or Google reviews tend to be really positive or I'm really negative. But again, you don't know reliably, does that represent your entire customer base in a way that helps you make decisions, right? So that's the real plus of going out and asking everyone for intentional feedback.
Yeah.
So that's what those questions look like. And then the emotional piece is the same. I mean, how do you, I leave every workout feeling glad I came. It's an emotion. I feel like a valued, I'm treated like a valued customer. Right? This is seriously emotional connected place. And do you know how many of your customers feel that way versus you're throwing me the next discount every other week until I unsubscribe from your AI emails? And that's important stuff to know. And it's really simple because, Matt, these surveys are all under 5 minutes. I mean, it's fast. It's fast and easy, but that covers a really wide range of information. And we do close with a suggestion box.
Nice.
Right? People, once they're primed, you've covered quite a bit of stuff in those few minutes, like 3 or 4 minutes by the time they hit the suggestion box. And it gives people a chance to share all kinds of information. And what goes into a text dump. There are some text analytics we can do, but typically that's more complication than is really warranted.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm actually quite curious about how you decide what those questions, because you said there's no one size fits all, which makes sense. So how do you decide for, let's say, a gym, or like even for my online coaching business, how would you go about deciding what those questions look like?
I'd talk to you first.
Yeah.
You need to have I'd study your website. I'd study your, everything I can find out about you. I'd read your reviews.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a Reddit freak because it's a really interesting way to get to some perspectives about brands that are out there, and then we just talk about it. Right? This is like, I need to understand what your goals are, and where you think you're hitting it, where you may not be, and I'll use that to craft questions that are appropriate to capture the objectives that you have. But any survey needs to be designed to answer business questions, right?
Yeah.
Begin with end in mind. What are the business questions that you're most curious or most in need of understanding, and or what decisions can the survey support?
Yeah.
Right? That's it. I mean, I can't tell you what decisions you should be making, but I can support decisions you tell me you're facing with information designed to optimally and reliably tell you what your customers desire toward that end. Yeah.
And that really brings up the question in me of how do you then, like for you on the back end, how are you then taking the quantitative data that you're collecting from these surveys and then turning it into qualitative recommendations?
Well, the recommendations actually aren't qualitative at that point.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Qualitative. If I can say that, hey, we sampled 50% of your customers. We always take a look and say, does the sample look like the population? Right? Mm-hmm. So if your customer base is, say, 60% female and 40% male, does our sample look close to that? bounce out, to create confidence in the fact that the sample represents the population, and then we have quantitative data. I know that 90% said this, and if I know that that's a reliable number, then you can go to the bank with it and decide that we have a majority who feel this way, or we have a majority who, or maybe we have a half and a half, and we need to possibly dive in deeper. But the point of this survey data is it isn't qualitative. It isn't one-off. It isn't the person who's either confident enough to tell you something awkward or angry enough or who's left you. But this is everybody had a chance to come in, share their perspective. That perspective is on questions that are designed to meet a need, to answer a business need. So it's really extremely reliable, quantitative, and again, it's business decision support is this kind of feedback.
Got it. So then it's really up to the business owner to see this, how this is presented, how this information is presented, and make the decision based off of it. It's really more of a support for decision making versus making the decision for you. That's right. Yeah.
It'll answer the questions. And we present it all very simply in graphical format. I mean, there's all kinds of numbers that sit under the hood, but it comes to you in a very simple charted format with an articulated summary of here's how we read what this is, and here's our recommendations.
Yeah. Got it. And then I'm also curious, how do you get the right sampling of customers or clients, especially when we're talking about gyms in particular? Like, how do you get the right sample, or how do you go about that?
That's a giant question, and it's the biggest sort of pain point, if you will, because we need to rely on your customer files, right? So whatever you have in terms of your business management software, that's the drawdown for the customer sample. Yeah. Those, in addition to how well do you keep that information up to date, if you're tracking, if you're logging people in as they come in or they sign on or they interact, or what their retail purchases are in that database, all that information can come in and be blended with the question and answer survey data, right?
Yeah.
If you tell me this person is age 35 and male, I don't have to ask them their age and their gender in a survey, right?
Yeah.
Way better. So way better to have that information intact in the biz management software. But there's a lot of variability there. So we need an email address at minimum, and that's something that the business has to provide.
Yeah. Got it. And then the one thing that I'm very curious about, because I know that a bunch of people watching this might not have a big sampling of clients or customers. They might have, a lower, like, let's say under 50 client load, maybe even substantially less at like the 10 to 20. So for those people, what types of questions can they ask to their clients, and how can they also take advantage of this line of questioning and this data to start making decisions about their client experience? So
in that environment, a quantitative survey is it's probably just too soon for that. Yeah. But what you can do is have for yourself and for your customer-facing employees, right? So there's a term called voice of the customer through the employee. Have a set of questions so that rather than just saying, "Hey, tell me how it was," or "How are you doing? How was class?" or "How are you? Are you moving towards your goals?" Have a structured set of questions, and maybe just 2 or 3. Start super simple that everyone is asking when they have a chance to ask customer questions. Record that information, and then put your heads together and compare notes. Just the fact that you're guided and you're a tiny bit structured in the questions that you're asking. How's it going? What's working? What's not? Those just basic questions. If you are consistently asking what's working, what's not, and comparing notes.
Yeah.
Small customer count sizes, you learn a whole lot more than if if it's just, I'm glad you were here, when will you be back next, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Those are really important engagement questions, but get specific about what you want to learn and make sure everybody asks one or two common questions.
Yeah. So pretty much everyone along the organization, and at that point it's collecting qualitative data. Yeah. You're saying at that point it doesn't make sense necessarily to go with those like quantitative questions that are more on a scale.
Probably not. Yeah. Probably not. It's just too soon. Yeah. You use those sorts of qualitative questions, Matt, as real listening posts that will then tell you as you're growing, what should you ask quantitatively, right?
Yeah.
Keep telling you what's working well for them, and where they may have frustrations or whatever sorts of issues. If you're all listening across those as you grow, you'll know that you need to measure, is this happening as we build out, and if so, how do we respond in the way we design our service?
Yeah. That makes sense. So what's kind of the threshold that you think it makes sense to start switching from asking those qualitative questions to actually starting to become a quantitative? And like, is there that minimum sample size? So like the minimum survey respondents that you think makes sense to actually get actionable insights? So
the point at which you ask is the point at which you're losing any comfort in the fact that you're grasping what's going on with everybody. So again, back to 20 people, 20 customers, single location or single service line, right? If that's an online in an online environment like you operate in, you can probably stay pretty tight. When you start to know that you have, there are things you don't know. I mean, you know that in your gut.
Yeah.
You see a review that surprises you from someone you left. You have whatever signals that there may be that you don't necessarily. You have some surprises that come at you. That's when it's time to think about switching to quantitative. And it's, in terms of sample, the question is less how many people, but then it is what proportion of your customers respond to a survey. So if you have, up to in the small to medium business mode, when you're in giant numbers, a completely different sampling of theory applies.
Yeah,
it's a whole different ball game. But in smaller zones, say up to 500 or 1,000 customers, it isn't a question of how many, but what proportion.
Yeah.
You need to have enough, and you need to know that the sample is balanced across, that you don't have, here are all the people who just love me and they all responded to my survey. So I have, 300 out of 1,000 customers who have responded, but I have some bias in that sample, and therefore, maybe it's not so reliable. So having an understanding of how to work around those challenges is really important, and that comes back to the issue of just best practices and survey execution. One to throw one out there. I mean, you can throw one out there, but that doesn't mean that it will serve your purposes optimally.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one of the things that sparked was, if you only have the people that love you, then you're going to get a very biased data set. So do you ever survey people who have left the business? Because I remember you recommended to me that, you recommended to me that I actually reach out to people who left early, because, we have a pretty long client lifetime. But you said, ask the people who left after the minimum period, after 90 days, why they left after 90 days instead of staying the 7 months that people usually stay.
Yep. Those are much harder, right? Because there's a range of reasons that people leave, and that sometimes it's for them, sometimes they're unhappy with you. Who knows? I mean, there's so many reasons. Yes, that can be incredibly fascinating ground for a survey. It's harder. Yeah. There's just more. There's just more hesitance to respond, and there's less motivation to respond. But there's a whole lot to learn. There's a whole lot to learn there.
Yeah.
On a large scale, I used to do that for large corporations, and we would do just whole segmentations for why people have defected. And I've done that in the wireless category, in some entertainment categories, because at large scale, it also tells you, if you understand at a level you can group, especially with some customer revenue information, who left and understand their reasons why, the value of that information to you is not only in helping to stop current customers from having some of the experiences that led to a departure, right? To get in front of defection, that's one thing, but it can also help you design strategies to win people back.
Yeah.
And in a fitness environment, that should be pretty huge, because churn in this business is just phenomenally high relative to many other sectors, right? So winning people back, you don't necessarily want everybody back. You want the people who are winnable and who have some behaviors that correspond to customers who stay long and do well with you. So you can target who to go after on a return and how.
That's super interesting to me. And as much as I'd love to dive into that, I know we're coming up on our hour here. So what I'd love to do at this point is just to allow the viewers to know a little bit more about what you're doing with Experience RX, because I'm fascinated by it. And we've talked about the process just by the nature of talking about how to properly survey your members. But yeah, I'd just love to hear from you. Like, what is Experience RX and what is the goal of what you've created?
So the original goal was to give almost instant feedback after every single interaction. Let's go back to the beginning of our hour when I talked about that customer experience is a multitude of interactions, right? That are engaged, that people walk into with expectations. How that comes together informs their perceptions, which drive their attitudes, and attitudes drive behaviors, and their behaviors are key to your business success, right?
Yeah.
My great idea was to grab it the minute you leave. Say you've had an online interaction, you've had a coaching session, you've been to a class in a gym. I can know through your scheduling system the minute you leave, and I could hit you before you're at your car with a 10-second survey asking you how the interaction was, and then build out this this amazing data set to help you. First of all, get in front of problems before they drive out the driveway, and secondly, understand what's going on, across each interaction that you have with each customer. That was too complicated. It's possible, but it's too complicated. So what we're about now, because it takes such deep resource to respond to all that stuff, and that might be a bit easier said than done. So what we're doing now is putting together surveys to help companies benchmark where they stand today on the various metrics that we've talked about in our time together, and then begin to track them, right? Because you benchmark these things, it's eye-opening. There's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
That's all about asking. The real goal is that you act on the information, right? That you hear, you work to develop steps or small action steps. It doesn't have to be life-changing to respond to the feedback that we've gathered, right? And that has been gathered to support some decisions that you wanted to make. Should I change my hours? Do I need different levels of workout for different types of people? There's all kinds of small steps that you can take that create a big difference in the experience for customers. Let's go back out in 6 months or a year, and let's pick it up and let's see, are your KPIs improving? Right? Are people responding to what you have enacted? to, as you listen to their feedback. So our goal now is to really help companies, sort of small to medium businesses, benchmark where they stand, understand where customer priorities are, enact some improvements, and begin to track what's happening with that. Because again, the goal is to keep people for longer, right? Happy customers are your, they are your best, most profitable members. They are your best and happiest referrals. And it's the goal of every business to spend less time and effort bringing in new people who are churning rapidly, and maybe redirect some of that attention to understanding people so they stay longer.
Yeah. That's awesome. And just to clarify, what type of small, medium businesses are you working with?
We're pretty focused in the fitness category right now as a passion point.
Yeah.
And as a place where, it seems this information is fairly lacking.
Yeah.
There seems to be a big need, and so a big need combined with a big passion has us focused pretty largely in fitness right now. See where it goes from there.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting because the gym that I used to manage, we would put out a survey once per year, and it was very qualitative. There were a few, it was, on Google Forms, there were a few 1 to 5 likely, unlikelies, but yeah, it was very qualitative, and there was definitely some action that could come out of it. But once I saw, the reports that you were creating for Experience RX, I was like, whoa, this is, a different level of actionability, because there's so much noise in those older qualitative ones that we would do.
Right. And that's what I see, because everyone today can send a survey. I mean, we all have access to tools to do that.
Yeah.
Just trying to bring, again, a little bit of discipline in it so that it becomes super useful to you, right?
Yeah.
It drives action. And I've spoken to so many gym owners who have that sort of qualitative experience, right? And you don't know really what to do. So
yeah.
Our goal is to help cut through that chatter and drive action, drive the ability to make positive steps that are connected to your customers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
People don't necessarily want to flit around and switch gyms all the time, but they get frustrated and they leave. And not to understand where that's coming from. And not everything's fixable, but lots of things are knowable, right?
Yeah.
You can prioritize and align what you're doing with, what your goals and their expectations are. And our fondest hope is to help simplify bringing that together. Yeah.
Awesome. And then the last question I have is, you mentioned benchmarking, and probably the first survey is to get a benchmark of the KPIs and where your clients are at and to actually know that. So then how frequently does it make sense to continue to survey? Like, are you hitting people during a sample period and then deriving the insights and then eventually, going out and surveying again? Or are you surveying consistently? What's that look like?
Well, it depends. I mean, of course, it depends.
Yeah.
If you have a larger customer base, it would make sense to be surveying subsets of them at more frequent intervals, so you always have kind of a pulse going on. Mm-hmm. If you have a smaller customer, and people, again, I mean, not everybody is not just dying to have the next survey land in their or in their mailbox, and we need to really be respectful of that. But smaller customer bases, the answer is, how quickly can you enact a response, right? What have you done differently in your business environment based on what you learned? That really drives when it's time to go out and ask again.
Yeah. Got it.
Less frequent versus more frequent, because it's annoying, and if you abuse the privilege, you will lose the response.
Yeah. And I love that it's based off of how quickly can you take action upon it.
Well, and you need to be reasonable because action isn't immediately obvious. I mean, that takes really, team planning, implementation strategy, and time to enact, and for customers to even notice that isn't the day that you go out and ask how it's going. So, I mean, and that's fair. I mean, that's true in many business challenge points. So, yeah, giving it time to be thought through, designed, enacted, and realized. That's the answer.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Marcy, thank you so much for coming on the show and nerding out with me because I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, but I guess that's going to have to be for another time.
Save it for another time. I really appreciate you allowing me to geek out with you on the topic of CX and fast, frictionless surveys to get in front of it.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be having many more fruitful conversations.
I look forward to it, Matt. Enjoy your trip home.
Oh, I will. Bye, Marcy.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
All right. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Marcy Welk of Experience RX. In the comments below, tell me 1 to 3 things you need to ask your customers or clients to gain a deeper insight into the client experience you are providing. And if you are interested in the services Marcy has to offer, I've linked up Experience RX in the description below. Please make sure to like the show, subscribe to the channel to get notified when we release new shows to help you run your coaching business more profitably and serve your clients more effectively. Much love, Beyond Macros Heroes. I'll see you next time.